Al corazon de Common Core. Helping Spanish heritage speakers and language learners get at the heart of Common Core. Presented to you by escuelaton.com, where we seek to empower language learning and instruction one beat at a time. Reading Anchor 1. Before we get started, I gotta say it. Ya basta. Algunos se dice ya basta, otras dicen ya no importa. El significado es lo más importante. And for those of you that do not know, ya basta means enough already. And I have to say it, ya basta, because I don't know about you all, but whenever I hear something that seems to potentially be constrictive, such as a statistic about myself or about children or about anyone in the world, I want to seek to eliminate that or to overcome that. So whenever we get to the segment of ya basta, that means we are going to examine quantitative data in order to make a decision within ourselves, adentro, whether or not we want to achieve more than what any statistic could ever predict about us. So let's take a look at a statistic so hopefully we can get some fuel and energy and be pumped up to master these reading anchors in order to be successful en el futuro y ahora en nuestras vidas. Let's take a look. According to the National Research Council's Committee on Preventing Reading Difficulties in Young Children, the educational careers of 25 to 40% of American children are imperiled because they don't read well enough, quickly enough, or easily enough. Now, some of you may just read that quote in a journal, a newspaper, online, on a blog, and think nothing of it. But I don't know about you, but when I hear the word imperiled, a little bit of an alarm sets off within me that says, wait a minute, I need to make sure I understand what this word means so that I can know how 25 to 40% of American children are going to be impacted or affected. So let's take a look at this word imperil. The verb imperil, or in Spanish, arriesgar, arriesgar, means a few different things. But before I even look to El Diccionario or an online resource or Google Translator, I'm going to try to break down the word imperil and arriesgar myself. When I look at the English word imperil, I see the word peril, which to me I think of a lot of traditional literature or sometimes religious texts that would use the word peril or a perilous night. It was always leaning towards a negative connotation. And when I hear the word arriesgar, I see the word riesg, and it makes me think of riesgo, which means risk. So let's take a look at what Merriam-Webster has to say about the word imperil. According to the dictionary, imperil means to put something or someone in a dangerous situation. Wait a minute. Why is a word such as imperil being used to describe American children's future job situation? So let's put it in other words. The educational careers of 25 to 40% of American children are in danger. That's what arriesgar means, or imperiled. It is imperiled because they do not read well enough, quickly enough, or easily enough. Well, I don't know about you all, but I hear that does something on the inside to me. I have a few questions for you. ¿Quieres tener un trabajo muy bueno en el futuro, no? ¿Quieres proveer para tu familia, no? ¿Quieres estar preparado para la universidad o para trabajar en una empresa o quizás empezar tu propio negocio, no? Well, if so, join me in saying, ya basta, enough already. Even though data says and suggests, I should say, that 25 to 40% of you all will be in danger as far as with your job potential and with maintaining your jobs, we are not going to stay there. We are going to say, ya basta. We're going to learn what we need to do, master these anchor standards in reading, writing, speaking, language, literature, math, everything that we could possibly do so we can be successful in the future, so that we can exceed y lograr la excelencia educativa sobre todo de lo que dice those statistics. You with me? Let's get started. Let's take a look at the first one, English Language Arts Standards. College and Career Readiness, Anchor Standards for Reading, número 1. Se dice, ustedes necesitan Read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. And cite specific textual evidence when writing or speaking to support conclusions drawn from the text. So I ask myself 3 questions whenever I look at an anchor standard. The first one is what? ¿Qué necesito hacer? What do I need to do? The second one is how? ¿Cómo necesito hacerlo? How do I need to do whatever it is that I'm being asked to do? And 3, I call this why plus, because we'll talk about the plus a little bit later. ¿Por qué es necesario? What do I need to do? ¿Qué necesito hacer? ¿Cómo necesito hacerlo? ¿Y por qué es necesario? A ver, let's look at the first part of the anchor statement. Read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. So, what do we need to do? We need to read. Now, I'm not trying to be funny, but when I say read, I do not mean skim. Now, skimming is an excellent before reading strategy when you want to make predictions about the text and get context clues and things of that nature. However, when it comes to actually performing the task, you need to read. How do you need to read? Closely. That means you need to read línea por línea, line by line, para que tú puedas entender lo que dice el texto y para tener comprensión de lo que dice el texto. Sí, es una cosita de leer, es otra cosita de comprender lo que tú lees. And what I see as a teacher is a lot of students are reading, whether están leyendo en español o en inglés, but ellos no están aprendiendo, not understanding and learning, entendiendo lo que lees. And this is what is important. So what's the why? In order to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. What's the plus? I have it in a different text for you. Explicitly and logical. Let's take a look at that word, both words, but mainly explicitly. So the dictionary tells us there's 2 definitions for explicit, but we're going to focus on the first one. Something that's very clear and complete, leaving no doubt about the meaning. Now that's the part of the definition that I love. That tells me that's the plus factor. Yeah, you can determine what the text is saying, and yeah, you can attempt to make logical inferences from it, but you need to know what the text is saying explicitly, leaving no doubt about the meaning. You need to become almost like an expert of the text as you're reading it. And in order to make logical inferences from it, not from yourself, you do the inferencing, you make the inferences. But your logical needs to be based off some reasoning based off of what you have read closely in the text, okay? Just from skimming or previewing or just reading captions or looking at just the graphics. Let's look at the second part. Cite specific textual evidence when reading or writing to support conclusions drawn from the text. So, ¿qué necesito hacer? And this part of the anchor is telling us that you need to cite textual evidence. How do I do that? Specifically when writing or speaking. Now, before we even get to the why plus, what does this mean to cite textual evidence specifically when you write or when you speak? I'll give you an example of how I can do this when I'm writing. Instead of just saying, yeah, I know that the story was written for the purpose of entertaining the readers. Okay, you're starting to answer the question because I read it, or I just know, or yeah, the text is about this. How is that citing anything? That sounds very general, very vague. How is that being specific in the way that you speak? Or then how you then will transfer what you think and say to what you write. You need to say things and write things such as, according to the author in the second paragraph. On page 2, in the 4th paragraph, the author notes in the 2nd stanza. See, those are type of things, or more specifically, the poet's notes. Perdóname. You need to be specific in your writing and in your speaking in order to convey. Why? So that you can support the conclusions drawn from the text. I mean, what's the purpose of reading something and then making a statement, but not having anything sufficient to back up what you're saying. You know, it even transfers and transcends into the real life. I can proclaim whatever it is I want to say, but if I don't have anything to back it up, then it's almost as if my words are, what? Not rational, not logical, not specific. You know? So let's review. En otras palabras, you know you have mastered the skills of reading Anchor 1 when you can read a text closely, not skim, but read a text closely to determine what the text says explicitly, without a doubt, and to make logical inferences from the text, not just based off what you think is logical that has nothing to do with the text, but you have to infer logically using evidence and things of that nature, reason, rationale from what you have read. And when you can cite evidence, you know, when I was a pom-pom girl back in the day, I remember a cheer that people used to say, be specific, be specific. Actually, no, that wasn't a cheer. I'm just using a beat from a cheer to reinforce being specific. Cite evidence from the text, being specific when you speak and write in order to, what do we say, everybody? Back it up. Back what you have said and what you have drawn as a conclusion, what you have made an inference, what you have done so well by reading and putting all this energía into breaking down the text, or in other words, to support conclusions drawn from the text. Your own conclusions. You're doing the drawing. You're the one making the inferences, logically based off of what you have read in the text. So why not, you know, get the best score possible or do the best thing possible and solidify it? This is how you know you've mastered the reading Anchor 1. If you can do these things, then you're on your way. I hope this helps. Al corazón de Common Core. I hope we've helped some of you hispanohablantes, native Spanish speakers, y también los estudiantes de la clase de español get at the heart, the core, el corazón de Common Core. Teachers, don't forget to visit escuelaton.com, that is escuelaton.com, in order to receive additional resources to help you and your students not only learn el lenguaje español, el idioma español, but also specifically break down those Common Core anchor standards so that not only you are doing a good job for your students and guiding them and facilitating dialogue, but they also are mastering the anchor standards as well. Check out our newest book, Comprendo, Common Core en la clase de español, where you get 10 CCSS-Aligned Learning Tasks for Spanish language learners. Spanish language learners. Perdóname. Soy humana y por supuesto a veces yo cometo errores también. Okay? Adiós. Visit escuelaton.com.